welcome everyone. We're gonna have other people jumping on a call, I'm sure, but let's go ahead and get started. So a couple of housekeeping rules. So this webinar is being recorded. So just in case you want to look back at it or see the presentation, you will have access to it post the session. So not to worry, we'll send it across to you. Also, everybody's muted to minimize the background noise. However, you have a Q&A box and a chat box that you can talk to us, talk to other panelists, ask questions, share your thoughts throughout this, and just keep it engaged. So otherwise it's just Yvonne and I talking to each other, and we talk to each other every day, so we want to keep you guys engaged. So in this webinar, we're going to discuss the ever-changing landscape, particularly as it has transitioned in the last 2 years, you know, this landscape of work, and what does it look like, and what does it take for us as individuals to succeed in this new way of working? How do we overcome some of the biggest challenges when it comes to job search or a career change? And how do you create a process that works for you ultimately? So we're going to look at, you know, the new career cycle. What is a good strategy for job search looks like? We're going to look at the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to job search, and then we're going to open up for Q&A. But of course, I encourage you to ask us questions throughout, stop us as needed. All right. And Yvonne knows I get too excited about this topic, so I tend to go into rabbit holes. So Yvonne, stop me and just cut me off if you feel like I'm going off road here. So
I have my watch, Elena.
Yes. All right. So before we go into today's topic, let us tell you a little bit about who we are and why we're here talking to you about these things. So from my side, quickly, I come from background of higher education and learning, having shifted towards more of corporate learning, training, and executive coaching over the last several years. I've been based in Dubai since 2014. Having worked in various organizations and institutions across the region as well as globally. This career development, kind of talent development, was a passion that turned into a career and then a business essentially. And it's something I've gone through my own journey of career change a couple of times, worked with various organizations and individuals in those organizations to help them reach to that next level in their careers or complete their transition. So this is a very exciting topic for me. And a couple of years back, Yvonne and I jumped into a venture together, which is called Bessern, and he'll tell you a little bit about Bessern. And Yvonne, I'll pass it on to you.
Guys, so I have a different background than Elena. So while she's clearly focused into helping people in terms of their learning, in terms of their career development, my background is a little bit different because I'm an engineer, so I need to have numbers to prove anything. So, and I have gone into a corporate career for 17 years in the same company and mainly in marketing. But guess what? In marketing, you learn something that is quite specific and quite useful in what we are going to be talking about today. We use behavioral science in marketing in order to nudge people to buy things that they may not need. Now, the thinking process between Elena and I is, what if we understand enough how the brain processes information, acquires knowledge, and makes you change behavior into learning and into helping people, in fact, become the person that they want to be, but having a scientific model on how to build this process in order to change. And change is quite relevant for the topic of today. When you are going into a career change, your brain is processing a lot of information, a lot of signals are happening in your brain. And this detecting, understanding these signals is going to be quite useful in order to determine the type of process that you need in order to be successful in your career search. Now, getting back to what Elena and I did in this company called Bessern. Bessern is a corporation. In fact, we are considered as an edtech startup because we use technology and behavioral science to nudge people understand better and acquire new skills and change behavior. So this is something that, in fact, is quite useful in corporations when they go into major disruptions, changes, culture, digitalization, and people needs to absorb a lot of new knowledge, a lot of new behaviors, and determine and new cultures. So we use the combination of technology and behavioral science in order to have results that are measurable. And the cool thing is, in fact, Elena, that we have been writing about it in different magazines. We have been sponsored by accelerators or corporations that are into this edtech world in order to help us out put together this type of solution for corporations. So we focus a lot into helping people craft these new skills, and something that is quite important because skills doesn't come alone, into having the mental capacity in order to make it happen. Because if you are too stressed, if you are not in control of your life, well, you cannot learn anything. That's the key point. We will talk about it a little bit more in the next slides. So we move on, Elena? What do you think?
Let's do it. Let's jump into it. So I wanted to just quickly look at how the world of work has shifted, because this really will impact how we do job search, what type of work we look for, and what do organizations look for as well. So if you just, I'm not even going to go back to the traditional ways of work where we kind of stayed in the same role and we stayed in the same career for 10 plus years, right? That has completely shifted, and particularly in the last 2 years, so 2020, 2021, and this is going to be changing more towards what I'm about to discuss. So there's been a big shift from freelance gig economy. So freelance and gig economy has been there for quite some time, but now you see more and more corporations are now looking for kind of contract-based roles, consultants, gig economy, to startups to come and join their corporations. And I'll tell you why that's happening in a minute. And then also there's been a shift towards remote work. What does that mean to us as individuals, right? So on the remote work side, meaning that now we have access to a much larger market. So no longer are we bound to a geographical area. And surely for many of us based in Dubai, a lot of it does depend on our visa and work visa, etc. But with this world of gig economy, we also have access to freelance visas, etc. So that has never been the case as much as it is today. So that opens up a whole other kind of opportunities for us. And also an ability to not only have maybe our main job, but also have some side gigs on the side to diversify our revenue, right? Also, flexible work. We have never been this flexible as we are today. I was talking to somebody in a corporate the other day, and this head of HR is telling me, she said, do you know, so they're trying to bring people back into the office. And so they send out a survey to the team and they say, how do you feel about going back to the office? And people are like, no, not coming. I'm not coming back. I'm going to work remotely. And I said, isn't that crazy that a year ago, right? Like a year ago, an employee would never be able to say, listen, I don't feel comfortable working from the office. I like working from home. I'm going to stay working from home. Imagine how quickly this has shifted. A year ago, companies, you would be fired, you'd be done. Now it's actually an option. And I know it's just a small example of remote work, but I want you to understand the impact that this past year and the year before has had on us. And so it's completely changing. And for individuals, it's creating more opportunities for us. Personally, I'm very excited about what's happening because I think this is the best time to reinvent yourself. This is the best time to diversify your skill set, to diversify your opportunities to monetize, right? Because you can now be working remotely and targeting different geographical areas. And on top of that, of course, there's another piece to it, which is now we're required to have a different sort of, a different set of skills, right? So again, going back, we used to be in certain roles for the same period of time, and we kind of develop within those years. So we'll spend years being experts in a particular area. Now the market is shifting more towards generalist or a T-shaped professional. So a T-shaped professional is, of course, like this, right? So you have the vertical bar on the letter T that represents the depth of your skills and expertise in a single field. Whereas the horizontal bar is your ability to collaborate across disciplines, right? Across different sectors. So you're not limited to one expertise area. You're now able to do other things as well. And that is what corporations look for. So the big shift that we've seen in the world of work and what companies want is they don't necessarily want an expert. They're now looking for people that are able to adjust. And even those that have been working in organizations as COVID hit and all these changes came about, we have seen corporations internally restructure roles based on where the person can add the most value. So now you have, some people, of course, will let go, some people will transition to different roles. So those people who survived in organizations are those that were able to adjust to different roles. And that is the idea of a T-shaped professional. Now, not to say that that's the only way. Of course, we still need the experts, and there are specific fields where we need that expertise and specialty. But what I'm saying is that even in the case of doctors are now have gone to online medical care sometimes, right? So even a doctor is very special. He needed to have that digital presence, digital ability, using the technology to succeed in his or her role in this new world, right? So and now we see a lot more of that happening. So I'll pause here for just a second. Yvonne, anything you want to add here? I'm just mindful not to continue because I can talk about this for hours.
So you got a good pause in order to breathe. This is good, Elena. No, what I wanted to add is quite interesting to notice that there is a mirror effect between the change that corporations are having. So we are talking about that because of COVID, the environment has become uncertain. There was a moment where many industries, in fact, have been suffering, losing sales by 70%, 80%, and whatsoever. There was a thinking about restructuring businesses, and some of them have been quite resilient to and be capable of reinventing themselves, finding new ways, new business models in order to survive. Some of them, they have changed the type of productions that they were doing, to something that was more necessary. A lot of corporations have gone into the industrialization of technology in order to be digitally present. How many companies were waiting to have e-commerce pre-COVID? Now there is 80% of the retail businesses in the UAE who have a digital presence. So there has been an acceleration of the change because of COVID, and people has had to learn super quickly. So only when you are in front of a lot of uncertainty, people has the strength to move forward. But the mirroring effect happens also at the individual level. So you mentioned, Elena, that for some of us, it would be the opportunity to learn new skills and in order to monetize or to try new things. For some others, it might be an opportunity for personal growth, to create the person that we want to be, the position that we want to be in the future. You were talking about the T-shape type of individuals. So, and the grooming of these new learning buckets is happening today. The number of people who are taking online training, certifications, the number of people who have registered to LinkedIn Learning, it is quite amazing. LinkedIn Learning during COVID is 3 times more the number of subscribers, because people wanted to reinvent themselves. People are thinking about, if there is so much uncertainty, why don't I take the opportunity to reinvent myself, either finding a new job or finding my specific purpose about what I want to do. Now that you said gig economy, there is so many opportunities out there so we are not meant to die anymore in the corporate world and to be our last position. So it is a good opportunity for corporations and individuals to explore, basically. Mm-hmm. And agility will play a big role. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And just a quick final point here. So, and this is something that a colleague of ours talks about quite a bit. So her name is Dawn Graham. And what she pointed out is that in this new cycle, what we're looking at as well is now there's different pathways to enter the job market. So it's no longer just that 4-year degree or having an MBA to enter into a particular role. It's now looking at tech schools background, certification, skills, right? Doing, doing even academies like the Googles and the IBMs have academies. There's very quick, short courses that one can take that will certify them and make them eligible for a particular role. Because of all these changes, companies now need somebody who comes in and just gets the job done, right? So, and that's why that gig economy kicks in, the world of startups, et cetera. Companies are now looking for these individuals to come in and actually offer solutions, right? Now we also have more access to learning. So as Yvonne mentioned, just the fact that LinkedIn Learning is now one of the top things that people use. There's other platforms and different modular systems where you can almost create your own degree that is relevant to you and your career. So as the world of work is changing, we need to keep in mind that the skill set we need is also changing. So we need to be mindful of what is required for us. What skills do we need to learn to be successful? Another point is that tenure is shorter, as I mentioned. So gone are the days where we stay in a position for 5, 10, 15 years. It is now rare versus it used to be the norm. Now, the norm is every couple of years, you change. Every 2 or 3 years, you kind of go either across or you go move up. You change your experience. And finally, your colleagues, as Yvonne mentioned, are now machines. So being able to utilize technology to thrive in your career is essential. We can't get away from it, evolve or dissolve, basically, right? And retirement is delayed. So again, gone are the days where we just kind of work to get to that retirement age, because now we're living longer, careers are changing, they're shifting, there's more opportunities for experienced professionals to add value way into later years of their life. All right, let's move on.
Before we move on, because
yes,
you ignited a very good thought in my head. It is the fact that if you are considering to do an MBA, so to pay basically 80,000 grants to spend 1 year to 2 years of your time doing that, you don't have the time anymore. Now, the value of MBAs has decreased. And as Elena mentioned, these micro learnings, this ability to have micro certifications is the future, and the future is now. And people are so much starving for this type of get ready for the change approach that they will accept it. So the fact that you will have an MBA from a reputable university, it doesn't count so much. So it has decreased in terms of value. Now we can move on.
I want to ask the audience a question, guys. So type in the chat for us or in the Q&A. I'm curious, how do you currently look for work? So what is your approach? What do? You want to find a job. What's your action point? Type in the chat or in the Q&A box, whichever works. So the question again is, you are looking for work. What does that look like? What is the first thing that you do? What is your strategy? There's no wrong or right answers here, by the way. It's just whatever it is that you're doing, it's okay. Give it another few seconds. Nobody wants to come forward? Nobody? Are we doing anything? Anybody doing anything? Or we're just not, we're not doing anything in job search?
So this is a good opportunity just to try yourself. So if you're interested about the topic of job search, there is an interest. So go and shoot for questions, answers, interventions, so that you can get the most of the benefit out of this.
Okay, so nobody wants to share. I'll wait in case you guys want to share later. All right, so there are a couple of things. So my guess is the way you usually look for jobs right now, and I'm guessing because nobody answered, so I can only assume, but my guess is that you will probably look for it in you are likely applying online, right? So maybe you're applying online, submitting your applications. Maybe you're working through recruitment agencies, right? So this is typically how people look for jobs, right? And so we kind of go into endlessly applying on LinkedIn, on different platforms, online kind of job search platforms, or working with recruiters, right? So if that's the way you do it, and I think we have something. Yeah, so somebody said we're applying and we're getting calls, but we're not qualifying the interviews. Okay, good, so that's great. Thank you for your answer. So that's one way, right? So and part of it is how we're applying, but then also our strategy moving forward. So And if you are applying online, keep in mind that today an average candidate only receives about a 2% response rate from online application. 2%. So imagine all the time that you're spending applying online, and the return on your investment of that time is going to be 2%, right? And it's not a reflection on how good or bad your CV is or your approach. It's just how it is. It's how the system is set up, right? So, and if you keep in mind, think about it from a recruiter perspective, from an online job kind of platforms perspective. There's hundreds and thousands of people submitting their CVs, right? And it's a lot of it is through the talent management system, where it just kicks off your CV unless you actually meet specifically the criteria that they look for, the keywords that they use, right? And so it's not about you and your qualifications. It's mainly it's about the system, the way it's set up, because not a human being actually sees your CV, right? And experts say that not that only an even smaller fraction that are selected from an interview. So 98% of job seekers, guys, are eliminated at the initial resume screening, and then the top 2%, so not even the two, but the top 2% of candidates actually make it to the interview, right? So that is how difficult it is to land the job. So here's a better way to do this, and I'm hoping that you take away some points from this. So in order to make your job search more effective, here are the steps, and these are the questions you need to answer, right? The what, why, when, who, how, etc. So when we're applying to jobs, aim to apply to jobs you actually qualify for, right? So what we often see candidates do is we're just kind of sending our CV to the world of the ocean of applications, and we hope somewhere will hit, right? We just shoot everywhere and we hope somewhere will hit. That can actually hurt you, because you're not taking time to tailor your CV to a specific role you qualify for, right? So you think that quantity matters, but really quality here is what matters, right? So apply for jobs you qualify for. And also, because if you apply for jobs you don't qualify for, let's say through a recruitment agency, and they see that you keep applying to different jobs that you may not qualify for, I don't mean 100% qualified. I mean at least 80, 85%. You don't need to be 100% qualified for the job, but 80, 85%. And if they see that you're randomly just submitting your CV to different roles, they're gonna literally put you on a blacklist and ban you from even getting through the system. So now you're just purely wasting your time. Companies do the same thing. So when you apply to too many jobs on a company website, same thing. They will literally blacklist you and you will not even get through, right? So you just keep doing that to the same company and you won't get through. So another part under what? So apply to jobs that you actually qualify for. Shortlist companies that you're actually interested. What do you look for in a company? What are your non-negotiables? So if your non-negotiables is you don't want to travel, right? Even post-COVID, or you don't want to be in Saudi, you want to be only in UAE, don't apply for jobs that potentially could land you in Saudi, right? And it's silly, but people do that. Or if you know that a job is it does not have, let's say, the health insurance that you really need, like they don't support you in any other way, but that's a deal breaker for you because you are taking care of a family member and they need that support from you. So there's certain kind of non-negotiables you need to consider. So if you know your salary expectation is X, but the company is offering Y, don't even bother to try to match that. It won't happen if it's a big gap. Okay. All right. Ivan, you wanted to say something? No?
I just wanted to add a little bit more. So on top of having this approach of being a little bit more targeted in what you want to have, I think that one of the biggest consideration is to find a way to hack the system. I mean, if we know that the rate is 2% of application, and it takes me approximately 5 minutes to write the nice email to the person or to have a contact, I'm saying if the numbers are not talking to you, is not responding to you, find an alternative way. So there are, and we will discuss a little bit more about the alternative ways, like developing a network, spending a little bit of time to find backdoors through other people to get that job. If everybody's using the same door, of course, the door is going to be blocked. So it is time to say, how to take just a brief moment to say, how can I hack the system? I don't want to use the same door that everybody's using. And by the way, there is another consideration, and it's human psychology. So if we are sending an email to someone that we don't know and directly saying, hey, I'm looking for a job, what happens? Think about what would happen to you if you receive that email from someone that you don't know with a CV that you are scared to open because you don't know that person and you don't know if this is a CV or a virus that is going to infect your computer. So isn't it worthwhile to be more relatable to that person first? Isn't it worthwhile to don't go and ask for what you want in one shot and build this relationship? Because we accept things, we accept to do favors for people that we like. And this is the most basic human psychology principle. So make them like you first. That's and the second point, of course, don't forget, always find a way to hack the system. There is always an option and a possibility, and we will discuss a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
And by the way, so and should I move to the next one?
No, just to finish up. So you've answered the who. The how, I just want to quickly touch on the how. So what is the best look at what is the best way to apply to specific companies? What are their policies? How do people usually do it, right? So look at their directions. And even if you do apply online, as Yvonne mentioned, always find an alternative way to get noticed. So then the next step should be also finding somebody you know within the company, but we'll touch base on that. And another thing I want to mention is the when. This is very important. Usually we start looking for a job when we need a job, and that is the wrong approach. In a good, average, regular economic market in the UAE, in the GCC, it takes 3 to 6 months to find a job, right? From the moment you start looking to the moment you actually sign and do your visa, etc. 3 to 6 months in a good job market. So that, to give you an idea, in a not a great job market, it might take even 9 months to 12 months to find a job. So those of you who are currently in the job, even if you're kind of passively exploring, it's good to continuously explore what's out there. Check the pulse, check your value in the market. There's nothing wrong with exploring. It doesn't mean you need to change, but you need to start looking before you think you need a job. So every time you're in the next job, you already need to start thinking what would be the next step for you, because time goes by like this and there's no magic formula. It just comes down to creating a system, as Yvonne mentioned, a process that works for you. And it's about being proactive and working on this on daily basis through small daily applications, which we'll cover next. But let's move on.
We go for the next one?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And the next one is quite related to what we said. So if we are talking about finding the back doors, one of the most important things will be to understand how to do to create a network.
Yep.
So and the thing, Elena, is that people always do the mistake that you are highly connected or you have a network by the number of connections that you have in LinkedIn, but it doesn't mean anything. In fact, the reality is that the network, the value of your network is based on the level of engagement that you have with the people that you are connected with. And that is something that we must understand. It doesn't matter if you have more than 500 connections in LinkedIn. You will not get a job if you are not interacting with these people, if you are not checking on them from time to time. It is an effort. It is a psychological effort, and that we know that, especially if you are in an introvert, it will take you an effort to go but the more you will exercise with people that you know have, the more you will exercise in a recurrent basis about interacting with others, the more this fear of talking with someone that you don't know will disappear. So, and it gets back to your point. It is about preventing before the emergency happens, and start today. I wanted to know your opinion. What do you think is the biggest mistake people make when they are networking, either online or offline? So to do that, you are going to take your mobile. You can scan the QR code, Or alternatively, you can go to slido.com and it will ask you for a code. The code is written below 192247. And I want to have your opinion. So what do you think is the biggest mistake people make when networking, offline or online? You can shoot for that. And that's the time where you need to intervene.
Yes. So just take your phones, take a photo of it, and it will take you to the page. Okay. Nobody wants to submit? Are we there? Can you raise your hand if you're there? Like you have the little hand. Maybe we have a bunch of ghosts on the webinar. Raise your hand. Okay, we have Shazin raise his hand. What about the rest of you guys with us? Are you there? If you're having trouble
to go to slido.com. That's
I was going to say, if you're having trouble going to Slido, you can just drop it in the chat, your thoughts. The beautiful thing about Slido is that it's anonymous. So that's why we put it up in case you don't feel comfortable dropping it in chat. But if you want to drop it, you can drop it in the Q&A or the chat as well. Okay.
Yes, that's certainly one of the mistakes observed. When you are already in this emergency mode, your level of stress is higher, your level of change is higher, and it's more difficult.
Yeah, not identifying the right contact.
Exactly.
Okay,
that's correct.
Well, I think the rest of you feel shy to answer, maybe, or there's a way giving up too early for rejections.
And it's almost like when you are going to the job market, you are like a salesman. So you need already to prepare mentally for rejection, to know that it is 2%, that in most of the cases it will not work. And we are going to talk a little bit more towards in two slides, a little bit more about how do you create this process of turning the page, renewing your brain from all of this rejection in order to start again, because you will live with rejection. You have to accept it. There is no magic formula for that.
Yeah. All right. So thank you guys for submitting. I think we can move on. Let's get into the last couple of slides. So, some of you have mentioned, it's just not identifying the right or kind of waiting too long. And essentially, it just comes down to following up. And there's an art to it. Like I like to say, there's an art to following up. And I want to share with you 3 rules when it comes to following up with our network. So as Yvonne mentioned, we can have a huge network, but if we don't do anything with it, it's irrelevant because we're not properly engaging with them. We're not properly keeping ourselves on their minds so that when an opportunity does come up, they actually think of us and they say, you know what, this person would be great for it. And part of that is staying in touch. Right. And a lot of opportunities are missed because we don't follow up. And part of why we don't follow up is because we think that if we just send an email with our CV or a message to somebody and that's it, and then we feel like we've done our job. And then we feel that maybe we feel a little bit rejected because they didn't come back to us. So it makes us feel a little bit bad to even follow up. So, and that's a normal human reaction, right? But I want you to keep in mind that sometimes people don't respond because they missed your email, they were too busy, they forgot about it, and a number of other factors that have nothing to do with you or your CV. So we need to take back control and actually create a strategy for follow-up. I recommend these 3 rules. So whenever you are meeting somebody, whether virtually or face-to-face, 24-hour rule. All right. When you meet a new contact, make sure you follow up with them within 24 hours. For example, now you might have met us. So maybe your next action item after this webinar would be to add us on LinkedIn and say, hey, Elena, hey, Yvonne, nice to talk, nice to chat with you today during the webinar, etc. Let's stay in touch. Right. So, and everybody else who's on this webinar could be your potential new contact, right? So looking at, hey, I see that you've attended. So making sure that you actually whenever you meet people or interact with somebody, if you want to stay in touch with that person, if you want to continue building that relationship, make sure that you actually drop them a line, add them on LinkedIn, send them a message. All right. Make sure you connect with them. Don't just connect and then 2 weeks later you remember that you met them and you send them a message. Okay. So try to do it within 24 hours while you're still fresh on their mind. The next step, rule number 2, is staying in touch. What do we mean by that? So you might meet somebody in whatever setting, and you might have an action point that is right away that you want to continue discussion with them. Maybe you want to ask them for an introduction if you know them well enough. Or you might just say, you know what, this person seems interesting. I'm not sure, I just want to kind of stay in touch with them for the time being. So this is where LinkedIn is really great, right? Sending people notes on LinkedIn, say, hey, we've attended, let's say you connected with somebody on this webinar. Say, hey, listen, I just read a nice article about job search. I know you attended this webinar. You might find it interesting. So sharing knowledge with other people in efforts to stay in touch with them. Right? Or maybe you see that they posted something. Maybe they have an anniversary coming up at their work. Maybe that's their birthday. LinkedIn is brilliant to let us know what's happening in somebody else's life. Drop a message, say, hey, congrats, happy birthday, etc. The idea here is to stay on top of that person's mind and to engage with them in their posts without actually being kind of in a very active relationship with them, right? So that's how you stay in touch, kind of passively. That's the minimum that we should do. All right, because Ivan wants to add something.
Elena, what I like about this approach is the concept of reciprocity. So when somebody, like saying somebody shares with me an article, I feel like I need to give it back something. So if this person is looking for a job, of course I'm going to be interested about sharing my services, my time for free, because this person did something back to me. So this is quite important to think about how can I be of service to someone so that this person owes you.
Absolutely. And that's what I love. It's about giving. It's about giving. It's essentially the more you give, the more you shall receive. That's a standard golden rule in life. And if somebody sees you as a person of value, it's guaranteed that with time, they're going to return that. It's just natural human nature. So, but it just takes time. So when it comes to networking and building those relationships, it takes time. And I see Indar posted a question. I'm going to get to it in just a minute. But the rule number 3 is rebuilding connections when possible. It is harder to try to create new networks versus maintaining your old ones. So, and one thing we also kind of feel a little bit maybe ashamed to do sometimes is to say, I haven't talked to this person in like 2 years, but I used to work with them. I know they know my value. I know they know what I bring to the table, but it's been 2 years and I don't know if it's okay to follow up. It doesn't hurt. It's better late than never. So stick with your current network, especially if you're a little bit more introverted and you do already have a good standing with your current network. Doesn't hurt to reach out to people, rebuild connections, reach out to old colleagues, reach out to people that you've worked with, maybe clients, ex-bosses, etc. They could be your go-to people when it comes for the new opportunity because they already know you. They've already experienced work with you, right? So reach out to the person, reconnect. Anytime when it comes to job search, anytime you've had an opportunity to interview with somebody, whether it's a recruiter, whether it's an HR individual, whether it's somebody that recommended you or just somebody you met during the job search process, stay in touch with these people because they've expressed interest in you. So by staying in, just because that opportunity didn't materialize doesn't mean that another one might not. They already liked you for your profile for a particular reason. So make sure to rebuild and follow up with those individuals as well. I see this mistake being done often where we interview with a company and then they don't hire us or a recruiter doesn't recommend us and we forget about them and we move on. But that's a mistake. You need to maintain that relationship, especially if it was, obviously, if it was a positive one. So that's a little bit about the network piece. Indar asked, does luck play a role in landing a job opportunity? So Ivan, I'll answer. Maybe you have your answer to this. From my side, it's about increasing your chances of getting lucky, right?
Exactly.
So it's we can argue, you know, both ways, if it's luck or if it's not luck, but it's about what can we do? What haven't we tried? Realistically, how much effort, how proactive are we in our job search? How much do we diversify our job search? How consistent are we about reaching out, about trying different things, experimenting with new things? All of these things increase our chances of getting lucky, if you want to call it that.
So, Elena, I think exactly the same as you. I would have said exactly, but luck is an incidence. Now, the number of incidents, which is the statistical chance that can be increased, is by doing more, by you proactively creating these mega chances, by interacting with others, by connecting with others, you increase in a higher chances. And let's not forget that people sometimes are in front of a good opportunity, but start not believing in themselves, procrastinating, and then they miss the chance. So chance is in reality what you do about your luck.
Yep, absolutely. And now let's go into actually creating a process and some step-by-step, and then we'll go into a Q&A after.
Did we answer all the questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about how the brain works, because that's the passion topic that Elena and I have. So we need to understand one thing is that the major reason why we don't change a behavior, for instance, when we want to lose weight, go to the gym, is because of our brain. Our brain is formatted in such a way that to protect us from the old times when there was animals going and eating humans. Well, we still have it. It's like whenever we have a drastic change in our life, there is production of hormones of fear, and this production of hormones of fears will paralyze us, will create procrastination, will make us think that we have a very good rationale not to do a certain action. So we need to understand that the brain is ruled by two factors. One is escaping fear and going towards pleasure. And pleasure is sometimes something that is not always good, because we might be wasting time, like using some time with eating ice cream or playing in the PlayStation or spending time in social media instead of doing what we want to do in our life. So that's one principle, is that the fear factor is ruling a lot of our decisions, and that's one of the reasons why we don't change. The other thing is that the brain doesn't distinguish between reality and fiction. So, and this is quite powerful. In fact, if we understand that, is that the brain is always is going to perceive the future worst that is going to be in reality. So when we are going to see, I don't know, a job offer, we will say, hey, but I'm not qualified enough. But maybe they don't have the budget. But we will try to invent a lot of good reasons that are in our head in order not to do the action. So when I say that the fiction and reality for the brain is the same, you need to consider something, is that by default, the brain is going to be pessimistic about the future. But it's also possible to rewind the brain and to influence the brain in order that he thinks positive. And we will talk a little bit more about actions in a couple of minutes. The brain doesn't like change, specifically drastic, intense change. So whenever we need to do a lot of efforts, imagine when you decide, hey, I need a job. I'm going to devote the next 3 days just doing that. Well, your brain is not going to like it. And after a couple of hours, something called motivation is going to kick in and is going to disappear because there is too much effort in one shot. The brain doesn't like intensity. What the brain likes is something that is repetitive and consistent, a little bit like the rituals, a little bit like the way you go and drive in a car and you don't even think about it because there is no waste of energy. The brain knows what he's doing and you don't even think about it. So you need to find a way, a process in order to create One, actions that are super tiny, super small, so that it for the brain is not a big change and it doesn't seem like a big effort to do. Second, you need to understand that you shouldn't be counting on motivation. Motivation is always volatile, changing all the time. You need to count in something that is recurrent, permanent, happening every time. Block times for small actions in your calendar. Make it a habit. Make it that every day you do 5 minutes of something instead of saying next week or next month, I will do job search during 10 days. Why don't you start tomorrow and devote every single day 5 minutes? Because your level of motivation and your level of perfection, because every time that you will do a micro action, you will become better at that. You will understand better what works and not. And the last point that is super important about the brain is that we are always learning. So why is it important in a job search? Because there is going to be opportunities that maybe today you don't have the skills to do it, but maybe in 3 weeks, maybe in 1 month, you can have the skills. You are never too old to learn. The brain is constantly recreating neurons, replacing the old ones with new ones. It means that, and the more you exercise this capacity to continuously learn, the more you spend like 5 or 10 minutes in a daily basis to learn a new thing, the more your brain is active in order to learn even more. So it's like a vicious circle that is improving your capacity to learn new skills or to learn new behaviors that you need to change. For instance, to control your anxiety when you have a job search or a job interview. For instance, these skills that you need about understanding what is SEO, what is artificial intelligence, and whatever they might ask you in a job interview, these are skills that you can acquire in an easy manner. So if these are the principles, but the major principle is about how do we create micro actions that are continuously a routine, and that works for a lot of changes in terms of acquiring skills, in terms of taming a little bit our mental capacity to overcome our personal fears. It works quite a lot. So certain actions that you need to take into consideration now that we know the principles is that you really need to get serious about scheduling. So if it is about CV revisions, having people recommending you in LinkedIn, doing the job search, updating your skills, block times. If it is 5, 10 minutes, it doesn't have to be 1 hour or 2 hours. Sometimes because of family, because of your current job, you will not have the time. So make it easy for your lifestyle and for your brain to accept a continuous recurrent change. The other thing is that it is as important as the action is to schedule your self-care. Why? Because you are doing something that is exciting, but is about your future. You will have a ton of fear inside of you that you are aware or not. Your brain is processing, this is going to be a drastic change. Maybe it's not going to be good for me. So you need to be able to allocate time in your calendar also for your self-care. Treat it like it's another task, like another job. You need to focus on your self-confidence because this is something that is quite observable and detectable within 5 to 10 seconds. You can detect someone who is lacking confidence. And in today's world, people are looking for people who expresses confidence. Why? Because there is going to be senior promotions, because they want influencers inside of the workplace. So work on your self-confidence. And self-confidence, you remember that story about the brain saying that the brain doesn't distinguish between fiction and reality. Self-confidence can be tamed by continuously having rituals where you are self-praising you, where you are taking notes of what you are worth. And you are taking notes, like writing it in a recurrent basis, because When you are doing it, the brain sees it as reality, is giving the message, yes, I can. Yes, it doesn't matter that yesterday I was rejected, because there is still 1 million opportunities that I can take. When you do self-talk, when you are talking to your brain believes it. And that's something that you need to do recurrently. Talking about self-care, even to take care of about how much water you're drinking, booking the time to go to sleep, and booking the time to disconnect completely for any activity that requires your brain power. And sometimes that includes social media. Believe me, social media is not something where your brain is disconnecting. It is continuously processing a lot of information, and it doesn't make you rested. What makes you rested is to be without digital for a couple of minutes, having your 30 minutes of complete disconnection, just either reading a magazine, a real one, or even not doing anything, just daydreaming. And that helps your brain to recover. Now, I want to get back to this story about fiction and reality and talking to yourself. It is called self-empowering reminders. I want you to write in a notebook why you bring value to whatever job. Why? How can you be an asset? How is going to be your reaction for this rejection? You need to write it down. When you write it down, your brain is believing what you're going through. And if you want to understand what is rejection, be an entrepreneur like us. We know about rejection. Some of the last points is about reaching out for support. And the support is about two things: the hardcore feedback about what you're doing, your CV, your skills, how you write your letter of motivation, or how you're interacting with people in emails when you don't know them. Find the person that you trust. And if it is not just for your hardcore feedback, have someone who can support you, who is going to encourage you. You need always to have someone where you feel vulnerable to say, I don't know how to do this, where you can share and get back support. Last point is about prepare your mindset. Failure is a key stepping stone in the process. Accept that you are going to fail. There is only 2% of acceptance of interview out of all the communication. Accept that out of this, inside of this 2%, there will be only one person who will be taken. And have this moment, these reminders to block the time to clean up your mind from this rejection. It does not matter. It's part of the process, and move on. There is a couple of things that also to consider, that when it's too easy, it never leads to great. And I think that this is a point that Elena has highlighted. So there is a way, the easy way, it looks like, hey, what if I write to all my connections that I'm looking for a job? So I send a big email for everybody. But there is something that takes a little bit more of time, which is leveraging really in your network. You remember that 2% of people are accepted for an interview if you apply just in a cold way, but 53 of candidates that are referred by someone that they know are accepted for a job interview. And in fact, 91%, if that person who referred you is a director, you will get this interview. So it takes a little bit more of time, but it's more efficient. So growth hack the system. Everybody is doing the same, going into the same door, change it. And that's the time. But the key message about this is create a habit, a ritual that is small enough. Don't go for hours, go for minutes that you block for actions. And these actions should include your mental well-being, how to be with the strong mindset. This is it, Elena. This is what I wanted to share.
Great. I love the part, I used to say, you know, looking for a job is like a full-time job, and it's not, because looking for a job is much more draining oftentimes. So by creating these small time frames for yourself to work on different things each day makes it much easier on our overall mental health and well-being, and able to manage stress. So absolutely, excellent points.
I think that if you guys are interested to get to know more about how do you create micro habits, this is going to be something quite interesting for you. We have an access to our online community. You need to just to get the access, just take the picture of the QR code, register, is for free. It's called a 10 days challenge. And what it does, in fact, it helps you to understand how to create habits, either for your career search, to learn new things, to for many things that you want to achieve in your life. And it will take you every day less than 5 minutes. And you will see videos with Elena, myself, and some funny actions that you need to do.
Thank you. And thank you guys. I mean, we're happy to answer any questions. We have a couple of minutes left. Please do touch base with us on LinkedIn, connect with us. We continuously post different topics related to what we talked about here today. So it's really just genuinely about trying different things. And I think that you might be able to gain some value from some of the content we post. So definitely stay in touch with us. We wish there was a little bit more interaction, but that's okay for next time. That's all right. As long as you got some value out of it, that's enough for us. So
let me share the link. If some people has missed the link to the QR to our online platform, I'm going to share it with you in the chat so that you can
completely
register.
Free, guys. It's completely free. You just have to register. That's it. So
yes. Yes, any questions? We are still on for 3 minutes, and connect with us in LinkedIn. Yes, I have. This is the website, but only with the link you can enter directly to the space where we have the 10 days challenge. It was lovely to speak about about
career
this
stuff.
Yeah, usually I'm not into the career topic, but there is so much to do about the mindset that we should have, the processes in place to look for a job, how to make it easy, and how to be mentally with all of the power that we can in order to go for a job search. It's not easy.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I wish you guys the best of luck in your job search. Well, not luck, the best of processes and systems that will increase your chances of getting lucky in a job search. Yeah, best regards in that sense. Enjoy the rest of your week, and you know where to find us.